as of April, but I believe now it has probably moved to 150,000, given the longevity of the shutdown. The population under 25 years of age is around 46%. We have a very strongly educated population, English-speaking population of 93.7%. And these are the demographics that will help you understand what Fiji is made up of. In the next slide, between Fiji and Indonesia, there's not much, which is why I'm really wanting to encourage those of you who are from the business community, young entrepreneurs who are considering to go into business, and future potential businesses who are here. I strongly encourage you to consider Fiji as not only a market in itself, but also a hub that you can establish yourselves in, and then you reach out the major markets, including the 3 billion to 5 billion Pacific market, which is made up of 16 sovereign states. Our next slide is, again, the justification of why you need to come to Fiji. Because of these reasons, the slides will be shared with everyone that's listening in, so that you can look through the reasons why you should come to Fiji or consider Fiji as your business location. The next slide is really to do with our bilateral relations. So far, we have a very healthy relationship between our two countries, the Republic of Indonesia and the Republic of Fiji. The bilateral cooperation is valued around 15 million USD over the past 10 years. Our regional collaboration is very effective and very strong as well. On those platforms, the Archipelagic Island States Forum Secretariat, the Indonesia South Pacific Forum, the MSG, as well as PIDF. These are where we support each other on regional and also on international forums. And also on international support at the UN and other forums, our relationship and our exchanges continue to be strong and also to be very fruitful between our two countries. So COVID-19 was first recorded in Fiji on the 19th of March. That was the first case that was recorded. But before that, from the 3rd of February to the 27th of February, or the whole month of February, the government of Fiji had taken some very strong positions in proactively trying to manage or block the entrance of COVID-19 into our shores. So from 3rd of February, the government had tightened or toughened the border control, trying to manage that. And also on 27th February, as the cases all over the world began to increase, specifically in Italy, China, Iran, South Korea, and US, the government of Fiji began shutting down visitors from these countries. After the announcement of the first case, travelers from US, UK, and Europe were also not allowed to Fiji. All schools were closed and shut down of all non-essential services. What I'm trying to present here is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the strength in the decision-making process that has enabled the Fiji government to control or to be able to fend off the huge volume of cases that might have increased in Fiji's context. We are a very small country. Also, we face challenges in our public healthcare systems, and therefore, these were the proactive decision-making processes that was done by the government to ensure that we were not going to be significantly affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. So as of 21st March, the second case was identified. 23rd March, the third case was identified. And the next slide also shows, as of 24th March, other cases that were coming in, and also the decisions that were made, including the implementation or the imposing of a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. From the 25th of March. These are some of the decisions that I would like to highlight was really made by the Fijian government to make sure that we were able to contain the spread of the virus. As of April, the whole month of April, 9 more cases were recorded, and a total of 18 cases by the end of April. Throughout May and June, the 18 cases were completely recovered. The Ministry of Health in Fiji recorded or reported that 100% of those 18 cases had successfully recovered from the initial efforts by the Fijian government to make sure that these cases were treated appropriately, and also the shutdown that also enabled the securing of our borders provincially and also district-wise internally within Fiji. But by July, towards the end of July, we had 10 new cases coming in, and the first death in Fiji's context was recorded on the 31st of July, and also as 27th of August, we had the second death recorded from COVID-19. But compared to a population of close to 1 million, and also given the other challenges that we were facing, I think we still had done very well in terms of our ability to try and control or to at least manage the impact of COVID-19, let alone the spread of it throughout Fiji. So in the next slide, this was also shared in our last session. These are some of the initial responses, including our status as of now. We are a COVID-19 contained state. Our responses includes travel restrictions, curfew imposed, schools closed, as I've explained further on earlier on. The economic recovery efforts as well was triggered and put in place to try and help the economy, because the shutdown as part of our response had a negative economic impact in terms of our overdependence on tourism being 40% of our GDP. But then we were beginning to look forward to the reset because of the changes that has been employed, and now what were the opportunities or the options or the alternatives to the structures pre-COVID-19 period. So we had, the Fijian government had started looking at some innovative approaches, the use of digital platforms, the investment as well in some tourism and travel activities, including SMEs and primary industry, all in the effort of trying to respond economically to the impact of COVID-19. Our next slide just summarizes as well some of our early recovery efforts, the efforts to prop up the economic and social structures in Fiji. So you can see that Indonesia also gave a value of 200,000 US, Japan, Australia, and other countries, also including other regional institutions. ADB gave a loan of US 200 million, and other regional and international organizations, including the Fijian government's stimulus package of 1 billion Fijian dollar that was injected into the economy to try and prop it up. So those were some of the initial and immediate responses to how Fiji was going to uphold its economy. But the acid test remains, not only for Fiji, but also for other Pacific Island countries and the whole world, is the longevity of the COVID-19 shutdown. How long will it take for the COVID-19 to be around us? And also, how long will it take for our governments and our economies to begin to open up? And what are the protocols that will be introduced in place to make sure that the economy is opened up, but at the same time, there are safe practices in place to try and help the interactions in an effort to kickstart our economic activities. So the next slide also is really the prioritizing of economic recovery by the Fijian government, just summarizing again what has been mentioned earlier on, and this was also shared in our previous session. But these are fiscal and also monetary and macro financial policies, including support from bilateral partners. I've highlighted multilateral avenues to be part of our discussion in this session, in the future slides that are ahead of us, highlighting the importance as well of multilateralism and also the existence of these forums that we are part of, both Fiji and Indonesia. Because as the video slide and my short introduction or explanation of why I brought in that video is that there are existing programs that are in place by these regional institutions, and there are existing challenges that are being currently that the governments are trying to address and as far as climate change is concerned. But at the same time, while all this attention is being given to the impact of climate change, to the developments around climate mitigation and adaptation, and all other themes that are related to climate change, lo and behold, the economic impact of it is similar and also is experienced by both our countries. And to a certain degree, it also links significantly to the impact of COVID-19. In other words, COVID-19 is a new problem that we are going to manage, but at the same time, trying to link it, the impact of the lockdown, the economic impact of it, and also the importance of making sure that our public health care systems are strong, are robust, and are able to appropriately respond to the demands of our public, and also the policies that are there that should be flexible or responsive to the additional challenge, which is the economic impact of COVID-19. Building back greener and bluer, responding appropriately with sustainability in mind. This is something not only Fiji, but the other Pacific Island countries, because we are small island developing states and we are archipelagos like Indonesia. These are some of the themes that we are beginning to dominate our public forums and also the public narratives in efforts to try and respond appropriately to the impact of COVID-19. That is both healthcare and also economic. So green and equitable recovery, this is something that has developed quite significantly and positively, the political framing of major public investment, shifting towards a more environmentally friendly approach, which brings in the theme and the necessity of merging these two spheres and these two realms of conversation, which is the climate change, existing challenges that we are trying to address as sovereign states, but at the same time, how we bring in COVID-19, the economic and socio-economic impact of COVID-19 into the whole conversation of existing instruments, existing policies, and existing frameworks, including the themes that are being focused, or the theme that these regional institutions are focused on, and how we can collectively build a constructive and forward-looking and progressive set of policies, approaches, and collaboration to make sure that we are including the economic impact of COVID-19 in this effort of trying to secure a solution, be it digital platforms, be it policy, be it other responsive efforts, but it has to be inclusive, which is what has dominated the public sphere of conversation, not only in Fiji, but also in the Pacific Island countries, supported by the narratives of UNDP as highlighted also in the video. We have a theme of Build Back Bluer within the Fijian government. This is the framework that tries to encourage waste management and also ocean resource management, because we are big ocean states, so to speak. We have a huge area of oceans that we are managing. And as we all know, that oceans, they are quite significant in terms of the economic activities that can earn significant amount of dollars from our ocean resources. So in this lockdown and in this shutdown period, there are efforts to build back bluer. In other words, the existing structures pre-COVID-19 has currently worn down or has reduced in capacity, probably 50%, probably 80%, depending on the sector that you are looking at, depending on the area that you are looking at. But the truth or the fact remains that the shutdown has slowed down the activities within these sectors. And that arguably has given us an opportunity, has given us the platform to look at the ways of restructuring and reshaping so that we can build back Blua and bring in the importance of these themes like resource management, oceans, the health of oceans, climate change adaptation, resilience, and the importance of human resources being amplified during this period. The pre-COVID-19 structures, as you all know, had its own culture of work, had its own systems, and had its own responsiveness, and also the things that were being fed into those systems. And now, during this shutdown, we don't know, as we look forward to a post-COVID-19 world, we do not know the structures that would come. But we have the opportunity now to reshape what was existing before, to include all these things so that we hopefully can produce a robust and inclusive post-COVID-19 structures so that our resources can be well managed and also our solutions can be effective in terms of managing the impact, the economic impact of COVID-19, and also the phases of recovery, be it a quick recovery, depending on which economy we are looking at, or a phased out recovery in terms of getting back into business as usual. And then we have the circular economy, which is an important theme as well, because this also addresses the importance of the pre-COVID-19 structures, which I was referring to, which is really based on three phases. One, extraction; two, consumption; and three, disposal. But when we bring in the theme or the argument of circular economy, it really surfaces or brings to the forefront a completely different level of conversation, which is inclusive of how we manage waste. And also, managing waste means the possibility of reusing some of those waste so that it can be maximized. Rather than just dropping off the waste, we are looking at how we can reuse those waste. For example, how can plastics be reused? These are some of the questions that are coming up in our conversation as we look at circular economy, because of the argument that we need to reinvent the linear global supply chains. And with that comes the importance of the theme of circularity, which equates to zero waste, which equates to resource efficiency. In other words, nothing gets wasted. What is considered waste here can be repackaged and can be looked at through R&D as well, research and development, or through innovative approaches. Waste in this particular sector can be reused as raw materials in a different sector. So in other words, we are trying to maximize and minimize the waste, but maximize the resources that we have to be fully exhausted with very minimal, manageable, and controllable waste outputs. And then we have the importance of feedback loop, which is very important in terms of what investors, practitioners, and beneficiaries are looking at. They are really prioritizing the importance of the capacity to consistently measure with standards to better judge the effectiveness and impact of an investment or concept, so that the information can get back to the initiators and also the practitioners and also the investors or the financiers who are looking at a particular concept, so that they know, okay, this concept, this idea is working, it is environmentally friendly, and more importantly, it benefits the human resources of a country. So this is really the argument of building back greener and bluer in Fiji's context, and also in the global context. So the next slide is really on the impact of climate change, innovative financing and programs. Again, I want to emphasize the importance of existing programs in the space of climate change, climate adaptation, and mitigation, linking it to the economic impact of the current shutdown, and trying to include the narrative of economic recovery during this COVID-19 period, and also in anticipation of a post-COVID-19 world. So these are some of the themes, the four main themes: building resilience and responsive economy and society. Financing is important. And you will see the list of some of the instruments or institutions that are in place to provide financing. Fiji had secured a 50 million from the International Finance Corporation to do with climate change, but at the same time, also looking at the economic impact of COVID-19 and taking those funds to make sure that the relevant policies are in place, as well as the investment is strategically done in Fiji's context to make sure that the final beneficiaries, which are the people or the population, get the full benefit of that funding. So these are existing spaces. They have their requirements, and then Fiji and other Pacific Island countries are also trying to meet the requirements so that they can also use these existing instruments to help in the economic recovery, which is our main theme. How do we ensure that our economies recover and we avoid a complete collapse of our economy, which will have some repercussions in terms of its social implications in our communities. Data and technology is very, very important. And also, this is where the satellite technology comes in, which also brings in the importance of our natural resources and the health of our natural resources. So this is another important theme that will help policymakers, that will help government, and also that will help us secure the funding, and also making sure that our resources are managed well and improving its resilience to natural disasters, and most importantly, food and water security at the end of the day. Mitigation and adaptation, again, this is an important theme, linking quite strongly not only to the climate change theme, but also this is where we need to be creative in terms of trying to link the two spheres of conversation, bringing in the impact of COVID-19. And of course, the challenges which is faced a lot by developing island states like Fiji. And this is to do with how well we can respond to the requirements of international funding mechanisms to be able to ensure that we are receiving these funds to help us economically and also socially. Digital divide is another issue. For Pacific Island countries like Fiji, there are challenges in terms of the digital platform and also the capacity, including the expertise that may be sourced from IMF or ADB or any other regional institutions, while we are still trying to develop the capacity internally. So the next slide, which is I'm almost done. The next slide is really to do with big ocean states like Fiji. I did mention earlier on how important it is for us because of the health of our oceans, which is significant. As we can see, the oceans-based blue economy ends about 3 to 6 trillion US dollars, and it helps around 1 billion people. That is expected to shrink during this outbreak. The next theme is the importance of safeguarding ocean resources. As we've talked about, ocean innovation also links into that theme, and virtual reality tours. This is something that links to the digital platforms of solutions where where Fiji's tourism sector is anticipating the reopening of the economy, and now through WhatsApp, through Instagram, through Facebook, and other social media platforms, trying to take a tour, trying to introduce these virtual reality tours as well to potential travelers who are going to utilize the tourism products in Fiji when the borders open up again. Blue initiatives and grants, again, institutions do exist, and we just need to meet the requirements and also demonstrate that there is a need that exists in our country, in our region, that requires a holistic and a collective response from everyone, and especially the institutions who have these funds. So persevering and resilience, looking forward, perseverance and resilience are very important in Fiji's context, not only in Fiji's context, but in the small island developing states, and I believe in other regions, including Indonesia as well, as we anticipate the reopening of our economies, or as we anticipate the introduction of a vaccine shortly. And the next slide is really to do with the Great Green Reset. It is really to do with how we are finding this new environment that we are working in. How are we settling in? What are going to be the changes that we will have to go through? What's the metamorphosis that we will go through as a country, as a community? What are some of the things that can be improvised, especially the traditional practices like barter system that Fiji has also engaged in, which has really proven to be very helpful in terms of a cashless exchange of goods between the people in Fiji. It has gone to Samoa and other Pacific Island countries, and it was covered by BBC, CNN, and other global news forum because of the alternative to the current cash-driven community and society and economy that we live in. But what are the alternatives, like barter system? What are some of the other ways and means of exchanging goods and services without really the use of money? And now, given this current shutdown and lockdown, these are some of the innovative thinking that has also helped our communities survive through this period. So my concluding remarks, which is the next slide, there are four main things that I would like to share with everyone that is listening. A whole of region intervention is very important. No single country can do it on its own. I agree with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ibu Retno Marsudi, in her address during the COVID-19 diplomacy address a few months back. She emphasized the importance of collaboration. And I agree with her 100% because we need a whole of region, a whole of governance system approach to be able to survive this. Financing and debt restructuring, this is another avenue that has been explored by some Pacific Island countries like Seychelles. They have done a restructuring of their debt, giving 22 million worth of debt to an American financier. In exchange of that, they have secured around 1,000 acres or hectares of ocean and also land resources to be secured and not to be touched and not to be given to oil and gas explorations and other activities that might destroy the environment. So that's another way that we can explore some of the alternatives that can help us, because once this approach is done, what happens is that the environment recovers in itself. What happens is that the untouched ocean, the untouched land recovers in itself, and therefore it results in resourcefulness and also ecotourism, which is something that can be amplified in the post-COVID-19 environment. Number three, solution-oriented innovative approaches on a country-by-country basis. This is something that also can be considered, but the current lockdown has given us an opportunity to rethink and reshape how we do things, and also to try and bring in continuously the main themes of oceans health, the impact of climate, adaptation and mitigation, and also the impact of COVID-19. Lastly, resilience and political will. We must have the resilience to go through as a community. I am sure Indonesians are a strong community that can go through all these hard times, as well as Fiji. We are working together as communities. We are looking out for each other, and we are having this resilience that this too will pass. This pandemic will pass, and the government's political will to implement some of the policies that are needed during this time so that we can survive the impact, economic impact of COVID-19. These are some of the unorthodox approaches that is already there, not only in Fiji, but also in other countries, for people and for governments to be able to go through this season. There is a huge question mark: how long will this COVID-19 last? And it's something that we cannot answer, but we hope that a vaccine can be found shortly so that it can help, because the vaccine is not only the solution, but it will help in the quick recovery and also in the acceleration of the phased out approach of economic recovery for all countries. My last slide. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope that you have, I have been able to share 2 or 3 things and themes that we can consider moving forward. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you so much.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. It is very impressive and then inspiring sharing from Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Isaac Grace. I'm sure that everybody here in the webinar will, curious to have to share, to ask many questions with you. Please take those questions and we can discuss further. I think without further ado, I would like to give the opportunity to Professor Ari Darmastuti to share her perspective, institutional approach. Please, Professor Ari, have your time. Oh, okay. I would like to share information about CV, curriculum vitae of Professor Ari Darmastuti. She is actually my fellow at my college at University of Lampung. Dr. Ari Darmastuti is currently associate professor. She will be full professor, inshallah, this year, in political science and chairpersons of international relations department, the Faculty of Social and Political Science, University of Lampung, Indonesia. Previously, she was chairperson of master's program in government science, Faculty of Social and Political Science of the same university, University of Lampung, between 1995 to 2001. She was the director of Women's Studies Center at University of Lampung. She received her bachelor degree government science in 1984 from Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Master degree in political science in 1994 from Iowa State University at Ames, Iowa, USA, and her doctorate in political science in 2010 from University of Indonesia. Her teaching responsibility and research interests are in the area of subject of political theories and problem of democracy, gender and politics, political science, research methodology, civil society, non-government organizations, political party election, local legislative, identity and culture, and local politicals and development. She has been expert team member of provincial government of Lampung from 2007 up to 2019 in the area of gender empowerment and child protection. Sumatra Regional Panels for International Fellowship Program by Ford Foundations. National Competitive Grants Reviewer by Ministry of Research and Higher Education of Indonesia. Director of Puspa Lampung, an umbrella organization of 21 NGOs concentrating on the issue of women empowerment and child protection. An expert to the Lampung Province Women Political Caucus since 2009 until now. Her international paper presentation experience, including presentation in Bangkok, Thailand, for joint book publication in 1914, Beijing in China 2005, and then Asia UK International Seminar at Brighton, UK 2013, first CIS Indonesian in 2011, National Minority Migration and Security in Reunion Island, Croatia, May 2019, International Conference in Social Political Sciences, State Islamic University, Jakarta in 2019. I think that's the background curriculum vitae of Dr. Ari Darmastuti. Dr. Ari Darmastuti, please have your time to share. I think I have to limit your presentations like 15 minutes, so we can take questions from the audience, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. His Excellency, Charge d'Affaires of the Fiji Embassy in Jakarta, Mr. Isa Gris, Rector of University of Lampung, Professor Dr. Karomani, IMERS, I don't know, is that right one? But yes. IMERS Director, University of Indonesia, Mr. Nur Munir, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, please, I would like to convey my greatest gratitude to be invited to be one of keynote speaker in this honorable webinar covering the issue of the current COVID-19 pandemic. That we have listened a very interesting presentation by the Charge of Affairs of the Fiji Embassy in Jakarta, and I will tell a little story about how Indonesia, as a big country, it's actually the fourth biggest country in the world, I think now, considering the number of the population. We are the fourth biggest country in the world with more than 270 million people, and then 17,000 islands. How can we manage in one way or the other countermeasuring the current pandemic that has swept through the whole world in less than 6 months? It must be a very interesting story how Indonesia can cope with this magnitude of problem by having more or less working institutional arrangement. Okay, I will share my presentation with the title. Okay, so my presentation today is, I give a title of institutional arrangement for COVID-19 countermeasures in Indonesia, a constructivist institutionalism perspective. I have to say that this presentation is based on my previous rapid study. I would say it's rapid study that I already write a paper and presented and submitted into a journal publication here in Indonesia. So it's basically from a study that I do, especially with regard to learning about the institutional arrangement. What do we have in Indonesia that actually work? I will say that considering the threats of the pandemic, it is really amazing that we are really, I will say, in a quite good institutional framework for combating and countermeasuring the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, I will start my presentation by giving an introduction. That as a country that lays on the area called as the Ring of Fires, Indonesia is called the Ring of Fires. Indonesia is prone to many disasters and the aftermath crisis, from small insignificant up to the mega magnitude tsunami back in 2006 that killed more than 10,100 people in Indonesia alone. We have also earthquakes, mountain explosions, and you name it, anything, from floods, thunderstorm, tidal, and landslide, everything we have, many that we can search in the website of the National Board of Disaster Countermeasure. And I noticed that in the research regarding disaster risk reduction, or called as DRR, it's many research about DRR, disaster risk reduction and management, they have been done. Yet little is known of how government, as the most important actor in disaster countermeasures, develop its institution based on unpredictable exogenous factors. I would say that any disaster is always unpredictable, especially, disaster is already unpredictable. So how can we create or construct institution based on unpredictable exogenous factors? It's very interesting study. So this study that I did, I conduct just recently, was aimed to analyze critically disaster and crisis countermeasures in Indonesia based on constructivist institutionalism perspective. So I use this, take this theoretical perspective as the foundation of the analytical tool for analyzing the institutional arrangement of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, in the study of institution, there are many theoretical perspectives that we can choose or we can take from. I take some here in my study that I went through some theoretical perspective that if we study institution, then we can consider at least 5 theoretical perspectives. The first one is old or normative institutionalism, and the second one is historical institutionalism, and the third one is rational choice institutionalism, and then the fourth one is constructivist institutionalism and network on institutionalism. We can read in the book of Rhodes, Bander, and Rockman is a handbook of political institution, basically. So we can go through, we can go back to that book if you are interested to read of those institutional theories. In the old normative institutionalism studies innovates institution through an analysis of how value or values are manifested into rules and its respective structure. So it's basically how values, like Indonesia have values, like we have Pancasila, how Pancasila and then structure into state structures. This the old or normative institutionalism. Study institutions through analysis of how values are manifested into rules and in respective structure. And the second one, the historical institutionalism, studies institution through changes from time to time, adjusting to change in the environment. And the third one is rational choice institutionalism, studies institution through best means to achieve best results by taking into account the potentials of other responses. The fourth, constructivist institutionalism, it's called written by Colin Hay in the book that I already mentioned in the handbook, intends to capture, describe, and interrogate complex changes and disequilibrium. It focuses on post-formative changes, while historical institutionalism tends to analyze past changes. So if the historic institutionalism studies institution from the past changes, constructivists analyze institution based on analysis of future changes, post-formative changes. And the fifth one, the network institutionalism, studies institution through network. It creates with other institutions to achieve its objective, to face challenges and to solve problems. So basically, we can, if we want to study about how Indonesia then set institutional arrangement, we can study from at least 5 points of view from these theories. So in this regard, I use constructivist institutionalism as the tool of analysis to learn about how Indonesia face COVID-19 pandemic by constructing institutions from central level up to village level in this diverse country, huge country with more than 17,000. The situation is vary from places to places. That very huge variation from mega cities like Jakarta and Surabaya and Bandung and remote areas such as in North Maluku and in Papua, etc. So I want to learn how we Indonesia can establish or construct arrangement to countermeasure or to combat or to countermeasures the pandemic situation. Ladies and gentlemen, here why I use constructive internationalism, because this theory has a potential to tell us of how we are overcoming this theory has a potential of overcoming the weakness of rational choice institutionalism. Usually, rational choice is more popular among a scholar of positivist institutionalists in the study of politics. But why I choose the constructivist? Because rational choice institutionalism, the logic is that changes are always predictable according to rational choice institutionalism. That changes are predictable. That is why it can be predicted. Causes and responses, causes and results, causes then causes and results are predictable in one way or the other. But we know that disasters, the nature of disaster are mostly unpredictable. While the constructivists argue that structural change are mostly unpredictable, just like coral reefs always grow differently from one to another due to unpredictable environment change. This argument makes constructivist institutionalism as the best theoretical perspective to study disaster and crisis institutional arrangements, since the nature of disaster is almost always unpredictable. That's in my opinion. Maybe we can discuss later whether my argument is well grounded or not. Okay. Next, I will say how institutions are constructed for COVID-19 countermeasures in Indonesia. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia, which was stated as national disaster by the government of Indonesia, by President, of course, early March 2020, then President of the Republic of Indonesia signed a decree number 7, 2020 on the establishment of task force for acceleration of COVID-19 countermeasures or PFAC, gugus tugas penanganan percepatan COVID-19 at national level. PFAC was established based on this decree number 7, 2020. And then PFAC was aimed, there are 5 aims for this task force. First one is to improve national health system and performance. And the second one, to accelerate COVID-19 countermeasures through interministerial synergy, as well as synergy with provincial and local governments. And the third one, improve anticipation capacity to contain the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. The fourth one, to improve operational decision-making synergy. And the fifth one, to improve preparedness and responses for COVID-19 pandemic. And the Articles 11 of the decree, it is stipulated that similar task forces are established in provincial and local levels all over Indonesia. So that is the basis of the construction of the similar institutional arrangement in the provincial and local level all over Indonesia. In the operation, the decree states that the TFAC may develop partnership or involve other ministries and offices, as well as private sectors and other stakeholders when necessary. The TFAC is funded fully by state budget, and in the provincial level and local levels, the respective TFACs are funded also fully by provincial or local budgets. It's clearly stated in the decree. So it is very strong foundation for the provincial and local governments to respond fastly to the spread of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. The decree also been used as the basis of diverting budget plans at national, provincial, and local levels from previous routine and development budget plans into COVID-19 countermeasures budget without common budget approval procedure through long process of budget proposal submissions, discussions between executive and legislative, and then acceptance or rejection of the budget. This is the long process of the common budget process. But under the decree, it is shortcutted by easing the process of budget approval by the legislative body. This decree states that the president, governors, and regents or city managers need only to notify legislative bodies in their respective levels about budget change. The legislative bodies were not in position to reject, even to debate the proposal. It merely in the position to accept unless there is a serious doubts about the potential frauds. In the practice, budget diversion came mostly from routine expenses such as staff traveling, meeting budget, training budget, which mostly were cancelled or delayed. So there is a reasonable way of budget change in this regard. Considering the magnitude of COVID-19 outbreak threat, similar task forces were established in the provincial and local levels that resemble the national structure, which mean the provincial and local task forces consist of related government offices, the military, the police, and other provincial and local stakeholders. And then fast-track budget diversions were also conducted at provincial and local levels. Okay. Then according to the decree, the structure of the TFAC consists of two main substructures, namely steering committee and operational or managerial committee. The operational managerial committee has the duties to first one, conduct daily operation of COVID-19 operational plan. The second one, coordinate and control COVID-19 countermeasures activities. The third one, conduct supervision of COVID-19 countermeasure activities. The fourth one, to deploy our resources to countermeasures COVID-19 outbreak. And then the fifth one, to report to the president for all of assigned duties. The operational managerial structure consists of a chair, which is chair of National Board for Disaster Countermeasures. Here is Mr. Doni, what is the name? Doni Monardo. Yeah, Mr. Doni Monardo as the chair of the National Board for Disaster Countermeasures or BNPB. And then vice chairs consist of operational assistant to the Indonesian Army Commander and operational assistant to the Indonesian Police Commander. And members, representatives, consists of representative from Coordinator Ministry of Human Development and Culture, and from Health Ministry, from International Affairs Ministry, Foreign Affairs Ministry, Transportation Ministry, Communication and Information Ministry, Education and Culture Ministry, Religious Affairs Ministry, and National Board for Disaster Countermeasures, Indonesian Army, Indonesian Police, and Presidential Office Staff. So these are the members. These are the members of the National Board, the TFAC at national level. Lower level task forces in the sub-district and village levels were established almost all over Indonesia following this decree, and then lower level task forces below provincial and local. Yeah, we already also witnessed some areas in Indonesia, they developed a task force in the sub-district or kecamatan level, and then village levels, even neighborhood levels, were established almost all over Indonesia since COVID-19 outbreak, which was formally acknowledged by the government of Indonesia on early March as a disaster. Early March, the first case, we remember, the first 3 cases was declared by the president early March, the case from Depok. And then in the mid-March, it was declared as a health disaster or bencana kesehatan. And then up to August, 31st August, yesterday, it has been infected, 30 August, has been infecting more than 174,790 people with death tolls at 7,417 by 31 August. Adaptations were made based on various conditions which may not be the same from one place to another. Areas with low or without COVID-19 cases may need only minor structure and small budget, but areas with high COVID-19 cases would need extensive structures and budgets. So like DKI Jakarta, and then like Jawa Timur, Sulawesi Selatan, Sumatra Selatan, North Sumatra, definitely they will need extensive structures and huge budgets, larger budgets than areas such as maybe Lampung, where we are here, and maybe also Papua. We need maybe not that extensive structures and maybe less budget. The latest COVID-19 pandemic disaster in Indonesia was the only disaster which need the establishment of task forces all over Indonesia at all level of government structures. This is the only one. We never have this kind of experience before. Even the latest tsunami in 2006, which killed more than 100 people in Sumatra, we didn't have that kind of structure. So there were some similarities for institutional arrangement to guarantee working institutional procedures and operations. However, there were also differences adapted to various conditions and situations. The institutional arrangement with regard to COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia were the portrait of Constructivism. It's because it's define the basic structure, but also it gives rooms for adaptations depend on variation in the area. So we see that like West Java, they have a very fast development of BS2, biosecurity 2 laboratory for COVID-19 testing, but we don't have it here in Lampung. It means that we have a very strong similar pattern of structure, but it is every area is given room for adaptation to their specific needs. As we know that Indonesia is very diverse, we know exactly. Okay, and my concluding remark. My studies show that although the institutional arrangements for disaster countermeasure in Indonesia is based on the same law, the implementation of institutional structuring as well as practices in countermeasuring disaster, especially the last COVID-19 pandemic, vary greatly. The mega crisis due to COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the establishment of long-term national, provincial, local, and lower-level task forces all over Indonesia. This kind of institutional arrangements have never been made in Indonesia, nor even the 2006 mega tsunami, which hit some provinces and caused huge death tolls, more than 100,000 died of the tsunami. The task forces at all levels were given mandates to establish necessary structures as well as to make budget diversion from regular conventional process into fast-track, more flexible one. I think that's all, Pak Ai. Thank you very much. Selamat sore.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bu Ari. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already here two presentations from Mr. Ambassador of Republic of Fiji, and then also from Dr. Ari Darmastuti. I would like to open to questions for the audience. Please, I think I catch one questions from Pak Kafi, from Pak Kafi Nazaruddin. Yeah. It is directed to Mr. Ambassador. How the government of Fiji manage its higher education policy amid the COVID-19 pandemic? Is there any specific way that university or school to follow the academic activities? And then, yeah, I think that's, so far we have only one question from the chat room. I think I would like to give opportunity to Mr. Ambassador to respond to the questions. Pak Ishak, silakan, please. Unmute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think it is a very important question because it really speaks to the forward movement of our people, of our children, and given also the institution, the highly prestigious institution that we are engaged under right now, I think it is a very, very relevant and a very important question as well. The modality may be different because Fiji is a small archipelago of 333 islands, and also the population is not really that much. It's just around 1 million, and given that small size and the smallness, I think to a certain degree, it has been enabled by the Ministry of Education to put together an education program that is suitable as well to the population. But I might have to add that we have a history of being ruled under the colony of United Kingdom. They were the first ones to put the education system in place, and that is why Fiji's public first language of communication and official language of communication is in English as well. So I think it is an institutional question, and also it is a question that is directed to government policy. It can be researched as well by the institutions or the questioner to see ways of looking at the Fijian education system and where we can try and link up with either a district level or provincial level of education. But we can explore that opportunity as well. I think we can look at it under a possibility of having an MOU in education, and also we can work together in terms of trying to see what Fiji offers in terms of education, from primary, from secondary to university, and we can share our experiences as well with Indonesia. But having said that, I'd just like to say that we also have students who are coming in from Fiji to learn Bahasa, to come under the there's a scholarship that the Fijian students come over to engage with under the Indonesian scholarship program. There are scholarship programs as well in Fiji under the Australian government and the UK government and other governments that can be explored by Indonesian students who are interested as well to look at the education opportunities in the universities and institutions in Fiji. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to mention that Indonesia has a policy online study from home for, from elementary school up to university. Is that happen also in Fiji?
No, it's just at the university level because of the issue of connectivity and also access to internet. As we all know, that Fiji is a developing country. There are regions where there is still no electricity that has reached that. There's also internet connection, mainly the outer islands. But the mainland and also the capital and the towns and regions around those main islands, they have capacity. So it's only at the higher education level, at university level, where that policy was encouraged. But also given the low number of COVID-19 cases, and the initial policy just to shut down the school, and then it has been reopened again. The school term has progressed again with the normal classroom settings, and of course, to some degree, some health protocols being followed as well. Thank you.
Angel Finanti. Angel has questions. I will read the questions. As we know, COVID-19 has hit tourism industry in every country, including Fiji. Then I read from some articles that Fiji government has been planning or even still discussing about the possibility to create travel bubble, or known as Bula bubble with Australia and New Zealand. Do you mind to tell us what kind of proposal did Fiji government give to these two countries, and how far this agreement has gone so far? Because according to Mr. Isaac explained before, Australian and New Zealand are major market for Fiji tourism. Can you respond to that questions?
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. That's an excellent question. There's two approaches that was taken. One is the blue lane, and the other one is the Bula bubble. The Bula bubble is to do with accessing the New Zealand and Australian market through the Fiji Airways arrangement with the Qantas and also Air New Zealand. There was this tripartite arrangement that was put in place for these three countries, also using their airlines respectively in terms of trying to push forward the Bula bubble, which is a concept that has also been implemented by other countries. Because of the existing shutdown in Australia and also the reservation in terms of New Zealand's openness, and also the reservation given our policy in Fiji to open up our shores to foreigners coming in, it has been stalled for the moment. The concept, the idea is there. The concept and the idea has been agreed to some degree, of course, with the little nitty-gritty terms and agreements in terms of the health protocol and other issues that is part of the package. But for now, as we all know, Australia has shut down its borders again until the mid of 2021. We'll see if they improve in terms of how much they can control the internal outbreak of COVID-19 within Australia. I guess that has also given a pause to the arrangement. The blue lane, though, the blue lane is open. This is the blue lane refers to yachts coming in from America, from Japan, from UK. They are still, they have been open. And I think as of when it was implemented, and probably 100 days later from its implementation, there was more than 50 mega yachts coming into Fiji. Of course, they were tested before they were permitted to berth on the famous yacht places in Fiji. So that was also being introduced by the government of Fiji to try and give some cushion to the impact of COVID-19 on tourism. So the blue lane was introduced specifically to open the shores to super yachts and yachts coming in from Americas, even from Australia as well, and New Zealand and other areas in Asia to come in and spend holidays in Fiji. Of course, I emphasize again, the health protocols were put in place to ensure that those who are tested positive would not be allowed to come straight in and interact with the people. But that particular blue lane has been a success. Again, it fluctuates, it goes up and down, depending on the country of origin and also the magnitude of the COVID-19 in those countries when they apply to come in to Fiji. Those health protocols, those checks and balances are still very much in place, and they are very strongly implemented by the officials in Fiji through the immigration department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. We have one question for Dr. Ari, and from Dundezen. Dundezen. What is the strength and weakness of government in response to COVID-19 based on your theory, Dr. Ari? Can you respond, Dr. Ari, please?
Thank you very much. Very good question. What is the strength of the weaknesses of the government response for this COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia? I would say that the strength, I would say that's like N in the structuring. But if we ask about how it works in the field, how it works in the practice, we come back to the common problem we always face: lack of human resources, lack of funding, and then lack of infrastructure. Because as we see, even if there is task force in Lampung, for instance, still, what is the substance that we, the PCR test? What is the name? It must be sent to Jakarta to be tested. We don't have the infrastructure here in Lampung and in other provinces. So it's very, very, very long, very long process. Even before somebody maybe already buried one week before, after 1 week after we know that, oh, he is positive or negative. So lack of infrastructure is very bad. And as we know that Indonesia is among the percentage of between the comparison between one doctor and the population to be served, Indonesia is not a good one. I don't know about Fiji, but definitely Indonesia is not a good one. If we compare, like one doctor must serve how many people? There is standard that one doctor must only serve some people, but Indonesia is not good in that regard. So we are lacking of human resources in the health sector, the first one. And also we are lacking our infrastructure. We don't have laboratoriums in the provinces, let alone in local levels. We don't have individual protection devices, APD, alat pelindung diri, self protection devices, alat pelindung diri, APD, self protection devices. We are lacking of that. We are lacking of everything. So lacking of infrastructure, lacking of human resources, as well as fund. So I would say that the establishment of the institution are there, but whether it will work or not depend on the area. If we compare Jakarta and East Java, for instance, we see that actually Jakarta has much higher cases, but they have a much larger fund and human resources than East Java. That's why if we compare the pandemic in those two areas, the picture are different. I would say that Jakarta fare better than East Java because of those three factors: human resources, and then infrastructures, and also funding. Because Jakarta, as we know, they are rich. Yeah? Jakarta is the largest. It's a tiny place with only about 12 million people. It's 1/3 of East Java, but we know that Jakarta has more money than East Java. Yeah, that's why they are richer, and they can respond faster than other areas. So if the weaknesses is that the institutional arrangement doesn't guarantee that it will work in the field, considering these three other factors: human resources, infrastructures, and funding. It is critical aspect that we have to consider when we are facing the same pandemic, because every scientist in the world say it will not be the last pandemic that we will face. Maybe if we see that from the Spanish flu in the early 20th century, it needs around 100 years to get into this. Yeah. But only in this first 2 decades in 21st century, we already witnessed a lot of much more pandemic situation and outbreak of such kind of pandemic in the world. We what is the name? A lot of avian influenza, etc. And then SARS, MERS. This last pandemic definitely will not be the last one. So if we have to learn from our previous experience, that we have to note it is not arrangement alone is not enough. It must be combined with enough human resource, enough infrastructure, and funding. I think that's what I note from my study, that those are critical factors that we have to consider for our future benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. She is really explore her study in institutional approach in order to handle the COVID-19 impact. We have another questions from Pak Ridwan, Dr. Ridwan, and it is, I really expect these questions from Pak Ridwan. So how far effectiveness the circular zero waste and recycling use resource government policy? Is there any certain policy from government or regulation created by the government of Republic of Fiji? And then it is very related to the concept of blue economy that you already explore. You already explained very extensively in the presentations. Can you respond to that question? Yeah.
Thank you so much for that question. It's a very relevant question. In late 2019, the Fijian government introduced the use of single plastic in supermarkets, and also started introducing an additional tax to those who will be using plastics rather than other forms of carry bags in supermarkets. For that, and also there was a policy introduced as well in terms of the use of plastic bottles for production and also for packaging. And there's significant efforts in terms of cleaning up in the responsibility given to the mayors or the administrators of towns and cities in Fiji, which is not too many, and also the engagement with institutions. I think it links well with Dr. Ari's argument about institutionalizing these efforts and bringing in the community to participate effectively with institutions in terms of the implementation of the policies and also the rollout of the plans to ensure that the concepts of blue economy, waste management, a circular economy is all being implemented. We can look at it from various different ways, but there has been significant policies as well and efforts as well in terms of trying to minimize the use of plastics, trying to control the use of bottle plastics because these are petroleum based plastics. For mission, we have been in contact with Avani Eco from Bali. They also have their outlet here in Jakarta. We've visited both the Bali factory and also the factory here in Jakarta. Avani Eco, the owner is Mr. Kevin Kumar. We have been in contact and we were planning to take him across because he was interested to go to Fiji to go and see and check out the possibility of establishing a factory, because what he has come up with is an alternative to plastic bags, which is also bags that are created or made from cassava starch. Fiji is big in planting of cassava. So that is an alternative and it can be mixed in a bottle, container of water and it melts. So it's biodegradable. We at the embassy, we are looking at that option as well and those other opportunities that we can take back to Fiji because it links up properly with the policies that have been in place in terms of promoting circular economy, the importance of waste management, and also which overall contributes to building back a greener and blue economy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Is there any questions? If you have any questions, please react on the bottom of the Zoom screen, or you can directly raise your hand. Everybody, do you have any questions? Bapak Ibu, please. Okay. while we're waiting for maybe somebody will have another questions, I would like to ask Mr. Ambassador, how about Fiji government handle the small business that losing the customer because of COVID? Is there same situation as you might know in Jakarta? Many business, small enterprise shut down because of the COVID, because of the limitations, people mobility. Is it the same case happen also in Fiji?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that question. On July 17th, a budget was announced, and the budget by the Fijian government was really announced in response to the COVID-19 impact, economic impact. So with that budget came a significant portion of resources being dedicated to those who are engaged in the small and medium enterprises and also in the creative economy sectors. With that comes the tax exemption as well, where some of these SMEs were not being taxed, and also just the other funding avenues that were being introduced by the Fijian government to ensure that they are being upheld. And that was in addition to the 1 billion Fijian dollar that was introduced by the Fijian government at the early stages of March to address the fallout, the economic fallout of not only SMEs, but some other businesses in general to help prop up the economy. Just as of, I think last week, there is another plan of a stimulus package that is again targeted to small, medium enterprises, because also the informal sector and sectors that are involving women is also an important area that the government is looking at to make sure that this sector is being supported effectively and efficiently, so that there is no significant fallout economically from the current COVID-19 lockdown and the shutdown that we are experiencing. Significant SMEs are also linked to tourism. That is also why there's a lot of effort by the Fijian government to also support some of the sectors that are being enabled through the tourism sector to be able to maintain this fallout from the economic impact of COVID-19. Still on tourism, there is a policy of support the locals. Support the locals with significant reduction in prices of hotels, where the locals are being encouraged to go into hotels and support the local the hotels, and also help prop up the tourism industry. So those are some of the nuances that has been introduced by the Fijian government to try and encourage internal reinvestment of resources to be able to prop up the economy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good response. I think I would like to share to Bu Ari. If you want to see the chat room, there's comment from Sari Indah Oktanti. How you, if you probably the curiosity from Sari Indah, is there any possibility that we can apply or implement the concept of PG in waste management, which is blue economy, zero waste, zero emissions? Can you respond to that in terms of policy that we can, the government might to make the policy for that?
Okay. Thank you, Pak Ari. My response is simple. We have to be optimistic. Otherwise, we have no reason to live now in this biggest polluter in the world. But we have always to be positivist and optimistic about the situation. Actually, there are some good practices here that we can see. I think there is one example of a company here that apply a zero waste policy, that all of the waste are used for a greener, more efficient. All waste are treated into something else, like the company of GGP Chaitem, right? They have used what you call the outer skin of pineapple for cattle feed. Okay, and then other also, they are like the waste from sugar company. They use it for producing electricity for their own needs. So it is possible actually to apply in Indonesia. Of course, considering the magnitude of the problem, of course we face much tougher challenge to apply what you call the system that works in Fiji, because if we see that Fiji, as Mr. Child Affairs, Mr. Ambassador said, only have around 1 million people. It's about the size of our city, Bandar Lampung, and it's also isolated in many islands. So maybe that works over there will not apply here, because we have much more serious problems. Because if we see that the problem of waste in Jakarta will be different with the problem of waste in what you call in North Sulawesi or in Lampung. So I would not say that we can imitate what happened in Fiji here, but basically we can at least make some pilot projects, and we can see some good practices that already work here in Indonesia. Because not all companies, big companies in Indonesia are bad one. There are some good examples that try to do what like the company, policy that works in Fiji that can work here as well. But of course, it is still not what you call, not in a systemic way, not a systemic way as maybe Fiji can apply nationwide over there. It's maybe impossible here in Indonesia, because we know the problem of waste in Java is different from the problem of waste in Sumatra, different from Papua, etc. So I think with the autonomy frame of work, it's possible for every province or every regencies, they can have their own initiative to try to make this what you call blue economy, greener economy works in their respective areas. So I think I'm quite optimistic, and that's what we tried. Why? Because in the new order era, what is applied in Jakarta must be applied also in Papua. It doesn't work that way. So that's why we fight for autonomy, because with the autonomy, it gives provinces and regencies to have their own initiative to try to solve their problems. Of course, again, the problem whether we have human resource, whether we have infrastructure, whether we have money, will affect also whether we have also the consistency to have a good policy to work in the field. That's what my response for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Ari. Very energetic response, and I think very good response. I'd like to see chat room. We still have about 5 minutes or 4 minutes before we close the sessions. I'd like to see another questions from the chat room. From Mira Suarto. Yeah. Mira Suarto. As COVID-19 has struck the globally, including Fiji, I'm interested to know Fiji educational approach, system, and policy during this COVID-19 pandemic, especially to rural area, as you mentioned, that have no any internet connection and even electricity. Can you share how you handle these situations, Pak Isa?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. As rightly said, when the COVID-19 struck and when we started implementing the restrictions on the COVID-19, there was significant focus on the different sectors, and also the need to make sure that that the pandemic was not spreading significantly in Fiji. So from March 19th, when the schools were announced to be closed, it was really to do with the safeguard of the students and the children and also the teachers. So the approach that was taken, addressing the approach that was taken was really to do with the protection of the human resources and also the protection of the students in that concept, in that aspect. The unknown element, because a lot of people, it was still at the early stages. Even the World Health Organization was not really aware of some of the characteristics of COVID-19. A lot of scientists were still trying to understand what it was made up of, which is why it is called novel, which means that it's a new COVID-19. The decision was really in response to the unawareness or the lack of information as well in terms of how this COVID-19 can affect a nation or affect our communities. Fiji is a very small country, and also the public health system would be under a lot of pressure if there was a significant outbreak. So to avoid the outbreak, the initial decisions was really based on the political will to make sure that the citizens were protected. Now, at that comes the expense of education, the expense of economy, the expense of economic activity and revenue generation, and also tourism. But that was really the approach at that particular point in time, which is in March. And it was really to do with the protection of our borders, the protection of our people, and also because of the unknown element or characteristic of what COVID-19 was capable of. But with that comes the continuous monitoring that was in place to see if it was safe again to reopen the schools, which happened a few weeks back, probably 2-3 weeks back, when the schools were opened again, so that learning and teaching and students can go back to school and start the education plan again. So it was not really too long, as in the shutdown, and also it was really based on necessity in terms of what I've just explained. But otherwise, the school holidays in the future terms would be reduced just to cover up for the time that was lost during the shutdown. That is the policy shift and the policy change to address the education aspect of the impact of COVID-19. So moving forward, the 2 weeks and probably the 8 weeks holidays that is normally given after the school term, so that the lost time can be covered from the shutdown period that was initially announced by the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 persons raise their hands, Rizky Rahman and Aldo Sukma. I'd like to let Rizky Rahman to ask directly questions, please. To the point, please. Unmute, Rizky or Aldo. Aldo, can you unmute? I'm already unmute Aldo. If you want to. Huh? Okay. I think they don't hear me. I think we have already come to conclusions of this webinar. It is very interesting that we heard from Fiji government representative represented by Mr. Ambassador, Excellency Isaac Grace, sharing the concept of blue economy and how to handle the COVID-19. Since right now, I think everybody will watch, will take on Fiji development. So I think Indonesia will support Fiji for the development from now until future, even though Indonesia is still developed. I think I would like to let Mr. Isaac Grace to have concluding remark. Also, Dr. Ari, please share your concluding remark. I think I'll start from Dr. Ari. Can you share your concluding remarks, 1 minute, and then after that, Mr. Ambassador, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Pai. It's very interesting webinar. It's very productive one. I know that the participants are still there following us. It's a great opportunity to share ideas. I do hope that this pandemic will end soon, and all of the vaccine and also the cure for the affected one will be available soon and will be distributed evenly, because even when the vaccine is available, it doesn't mean that all the countries, maybe also Fiji and Indonesia, will have the same opportunity for the affected one to have the vaccine. We have to learn from this pandemic that we need to establish a stronger institutional basis in the future, because as all of the experts say, it will not be the end. It will not be last pandemic that happened, considering the destruction of the environment that Fiji has started with their blue economy and then greener one. It's very good step, because we know that it is the pandemic started from the interaction between nature and human being, reckless human being behavior, and that's finally destroy the environment that create the threat to the whole world, considering the speed of the human traveling in the world now. It's a borderless world, and what happened in Fiji will affect all over the world in less than half a year. So I think it is the fastest conqueror of the world is the unseen creature, tiny creature that now make us bend to our knees everywhere. So let us learn about this bitter story that make us well prepared for the future. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for sharing the story from Fiji. Hopefully I can visit Fiji in the future, maybe for a seminar there, His Excellency. Yes. I would really grateful if I'm invited to visit to Fiji, maybe in the future.
You should come.
Very much, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ari. Terima kasih.
Thank you. Terima kasih, Dr. Ari. I would like to let Mr. Ambassador to give concluding remarks. 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much. I really thank the organizers. I really thank everyone that has participated. I really thank the opportunity that has been given. Fiji is still learning. We are here to learn as well from Indonesia. Indonesia is a massive country, and there's so many things that Indonesia can teach us as well in terms of recovery, in terms of our efforts to work together. And there are opportunities to collaborate between the two countries. We have seen how healthy and how strong our relationships are. It can be extended into the health and other sectors. COVID-19, we hope that it will end soon. I really admire and respect the fact that Indonesia has capacity to develop a possibility in terms of a vaccine. I understand that Biofarm, whom we had a meeting a few weeks back, is working with Chinese pharmaceutical as well to try and develop a vaccine. And I think they are going into the third phase of testing. So we look forward to those kind of developments as well. As a small island archipelago, we look to our big friends and neighbors like the Republic of Indonesia to also learn from the Republic of Indonesia on how to deal with these challenges, because the challenges are equal. We are archipelagos and the challenges are same. We have climate change, we have natural disasters, as explained by Dr. Ari, and there are similarities in terms of our collaboration and areas of working together. Again, I wish everyone good health and safety to your families, to the whole institution, to everyone that is listening. I wish you well and good luck. And terima kasih banyak from the Fiji Embassy here in Jakarta. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Before we, I let Master of Ceremony to handle the forum before closing remark from Pak Nur Munir. I would like to extend, on behalf of UNILA, I would like to extend our gratitude. Thank you very much for IMERS, Islamic Middle Eastern Research Center, and then DIPLO. Thank you very much to ITB Ahmad Dahlan, and then to Universitas Syekh Kuala, and then Universitas Andalas, and then UIN Araniri. Thank you very much for collaborations of this very good seminar. And then on behalf of UNILA International Office, Mr. Ambassador, this is special message from Pak Rector for Mr. Ambassadors. We would like to inform you that we open the opportunity to give the scholarship from UNILA, yeah, for Fiji student to join Universitas Lampung as a student. We will give the Bahasa Indonesia class, and then also you can also the student from Fiji can also join the international class in Universitas Lampung. We provide a scholarship for them. Probably you can send 1 or 2 students here, and then we provide residence facility, dormitory, and then also monthly stipend, and then free of charge of tuitions. I think this is very, I don't know, it is, I'm sure this is very good offer for exclusively Fiji students.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are looking forward to see the student from Fiji to join UNILA. I think that's it for today. I'm as moderator, I would like to apologize. Maybe there's some mistake what I have said.
No,
And then thank you very much. We are very, very proud. So many people join this webinar, and then hope we can also arrange, especially Pak Abu Ali. Thank you very much. Abu Ali is a very good guy. Pak Munir, thank you very much. We would like to hear from you the closing remarks. I would like to let MC ya, let MC Mbak Ais masih ya dalam to take over the webinar. Thank you very much from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for Dr. Ai Ahadiat MBA as our today's very interactive discussion with His Excellency Mr. Isaac Grace as Church the Affairs of Fiji Embassy in Jakarta, and Dr. Ari Darmastuti as Head of a Department of International Relations, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, we are now in our almost final agenda. Let's welcome Dr. Nur Munir, MAGS, MTS from IMERC Universitas Indonesia for delivering closing remarks. So, Dr. Andes Nur Munir, time is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Is my voice heard,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Professor Dr. Karomani, MSc, Rector of the University of Lampung. His Excellency Mr. Isaac Grace, Judge the Affairs of the Embassy of the Republic of Fiji Islands in Jakarta. Thank you very much for your share. Thank you also to Dr. Ari Ahadiat, Director of International Affairs of the University of Lampung, for taking the lead in this afternoon's discussions, a wonderful one. Dr. Ari Darmastuti, thank you very much for your shares of your knowledge. Chairpersons of the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Social and Political Science, University of Lampung. I would like to mention also thankful to Mr. Nasir, Director of Dylomacy Foundations, Mbak Nur Aisyah Maulidia, General Secretary of Dylomacy. I see here also there is a Professor Rusmin Tumangkor, Abu Ali, Bapak Dundezen, Dr. Masud M. Nur. Thank you also for the question of Dr. Insinyur Ridwans, Mbak Angel Finanti, Mirna Soeharto, Pak Teguh, Inka, Nur Aini, and many others. The audience consists of 151, and now it's 147. Thanks also Andalas University, representative here. There is from State Islamic University of Araniri, University of Lampung, University of Syahkuala, Institut Teknologi Bisnis dan Bisnis Ahmad Dahlan ITB AD. Bapak Isaac Grace telah menyampaikan a wonderful shares of the knowledge. And the title of Fiji's way to combat the economic impact of COVID-19 that we can learn. And also the share from Dr. Ari Darmastuti. Thank you very much for your share titled Institutional Arrangements for COVID-19 Countermeasures in Indonesia, Constructivist Institutionalism Perspective. Wonderful ones and very much knowledgeable that you share your knowledge. Fiji, the Republic of Fiji Islands. This is a full independent country from British on the 1917 and soon become the members of Persemakmuran. Small country, 1.26 million kilometers only compared to Indonesia. It's uncomparable. Thank you very much. That is the Fiji Islands. The penduduk or the population is so small, as according to His Excellency today that informs us as number of 884,087 as according to 2007 information compared to 270 million of Indonesian populations. So it is a small country, but it's our neighborhood country. Fiji missions in Jakarta is also accredited to High Commissioner to Singapore, so accredited to Indonesia and Singapore, and also to ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian nations. So diplomatically, as according to the records between Indonesia and the Republic of Fiji, was set since 1974, and Indonesia said it is a representative office in Fiji in 2002, earlier than Fiji's establishment of its representative in Jakarta, that is 2011. And the current ambassador of Indonesia in Fiji is Bapak Raden Muhammad Binyamin Scott Karnadi. This is in order to follow the Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic Relations 1961, as according to its preambles, paragraph 2, that is the purpose of and principles of Charter of the United Nations concerning the sovereign equality of states, the maintenance of international peace and security, and the promotions of friendly relations among nations, EA, Indonesia, and Fiji, that we discussed today. According to the paragraph 3 of the Vienna Conventions of Diplomatic Relations between countries, that is believing that an international conventions on diplomatic intercourse, privileges, and immunities both contributes to the development of friendly relations among nations, EA between Indonesia and Fiji, irrespective of their different constitutional and social system. That is to uphold the Charter of the United Nations at the city of San Francisco on June 26, 1945. According to the Article 1 of the Charter, the purpose of the United Nations is to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, to take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats and peace. So that is, I would like to underline the Charter of the United Nations that related to of our discussion today, that is share knowledge between what we have done, what Fiji has done to cover the COVID-19, to overcome economic challenges post COVID-19, and also as according to Indonesia that Ms. Ari has presented. Principle of the charter that we would like to underline also is the organization is based on the principle of sovereign equality of all members. All members in order to ensure to all the rights and benefits, how to learn Fiji overcome the economic comebacks post COVID-19. And the resulting from those membership shall fulfill in good faith and the obligation assumed by them in accordance with the present charter. So, as according to the Fiji missions, the visions of Embassy of the Republic of Fiji, as according to its website, the vision is a vibrant and enduring relationships between governments and people of the countries of accreditations, that is Indonesia, Singapore, and associations of Southeast nations and Fiji. And the mission is to establish new and nurture existing relationships as the case may be to fulfill our visions. So the information that His Excellency Just the Affairs shared today is bilateral diplomatic relations consists of 3 aspects. That is bilateral cooperations, 1. Second is regional collaborations. The third, international support. Fiji, Indonesia supports each other at international forum. Regional and multilateral cooperations that Fiji has expressed it, that is so far other than bilateral level relation between Indonesia and Fiji, also in multilateral level in the Asian and in non-aligned movement, AM. And non-aligned movement was Indonesia was the one who promotes the establishment of the non-aligned movement, and Fiji welcomed to be member since 2011. In Asia, Fiji's affiliations to the group is being pursued at two levels. One is ambassadorial accreditations, and second is Fiji's observer status to the Asians. Welcome. So we are, between Indonesia and Fiji, has two levels of relations, that is bilateral and multilateral level. As Fiji's commitments to responding appropriately with sustainability in mind, Fiji's commitment to sustainable development goals, SDGs of 2015. There are 17 points of SDGs, and one of the 17 is climate actions. And as His Excellency shared today with us, there are 4 points of actions towards climate actions. That is point number 13 of the SDGs. Number 1 that His Excellency shared with us is green and equitable recovery, building back green and bluer. Number 2 is circular economy. Third, build back bluer. And fourth, feedback loop. So that is part of the actions that Fiji expresses toward the climate actions. As similar parallel to Indonesia is also in efforts to contribute in climate actions. Fiji, of the impact of climate change, innovative financings and programs, as His Excellency shared today. At the 4th level also, how to build resilience and responsive economy and society. That is 4 points that His Excellency shared with us today. First is financings. Second is data technology enhancements, mitigations, adaptation, and the 4th is challenge, how to challenge the climate change. So, in concluding remark that I would like to underline from His Excellency today is there are 4 points. That is wholes of regions interventions, number 1. And number 2 is financing and debt construction. Number 3 is solution-oriented innovative approaches. Resilience and political will is number 4. So that is the commitments that states in the concluding remarks of His Excellency. Thank you very much. So in the level of multilateral cooperations in the environment of ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Indonesia was among the establishers. There are 5 of those. That is Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Those 5 countries was the establishers of associations of Southeast Asian nations. And later, and currently, the ASEAN member consists of 10 countries. That is Burma, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Brunei, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. So Fiji's observers and ambassadorial to ASEAN, we are here among the 5 of establishers of these organizations. In terms of Fiji's memberships in non-aligned countries, since 2011, basically those organizations or those movements was established in Beograd 1961, but prior to that there was Dasa Sila Bandung the basis of the establishment of the NAM and AM non-aligned countries in Beograd, Yugoslavia, and to be held in Bandung, Konferensi Asia Afrika tahun 1955 yang menghasilkan dasar sila Bandung, the 10 principles, basic principles of NAM. Jadi menghormati hak asasi manusia sesuai dengan piagam PBB, number 1. Number 2, menghormati kedaulatan wilayah setiap bangsa.
Pak Munir.
Persamaan semua ras dan seterusnya, dan itu adalah bagian dari sejarah.
Excuse me, Pak Munir, can you shorten the message? Thank you.
Nah, selanjutnya Fiji's memberships today, how to overcome together combating economic post COVID-19. The name is no longer relevant because of the superpower of the Eastern regions is already called in 1992. So we are now welcomed between Indonesia and Fiji in the level of bilateral and multilateral to overcome the economic, how to revive the economics revival together, learn each other, and give one to the other as possible as according to the two bilateral or multilateral in the level of ASEAN and NAM. Akhirul kalam, semoga kita bisa mengekspresikan apa yang menjadi tujuan nasional, yaitu melindungi segenap bangsa Indonesia dan seluruh tumpah darah Indonesia, dan untuk memajukan kesejahteraan umum, mencerdaskan kehidupan bangsa, dan khususnya dengan Indonesia dan Fiji adalah ikut melaksanakan ketertiban dunia yang berdasarkan kemerdekaan, perdamaian abadi, dan keadilan sosial. Terima kasih, mohon maaf. God bless us all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much for a closing remark from Dr. Nur Munir as the director of IMERC Universitas Indonesia. And dear ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda is token of appreciation awarding, and we call Professor Dr. Karomani MSE to give a token of appreciation for His Excellency Mr. Isaac Grace. For Dr. Karomani MSE, we please.
Baik, Prof. Karomani sudah ke acara lain.
Okay, so we can continue to our last agenda. Yes, sir?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So we can move to our next agenda. The last agenda is a photo session. We ask all the audiences to turn your camera on so I can take a screenshot since there's so many participants, 106 participants. So I'm gonna take a picture for 3 times, and I ask you to turn your camera on, and I'll do countdown for a screenshot. Okay, we can start from 3, 2, 1. Please say cheese. Okay, and the second.
Thank you.
Please turn your
Mari,
camera.
bisa gabung ya? Sudah.
1, 2, 3. Okay, and then for the last, please turn your camera on. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Sudah izin.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I'd like to say thank you for all our sponsors
You're right.
from Islamic and Middle East.
Very right.
Center or IMERC, and Andalas University, Institute Teknologi and Business ITB Ahmad Dahlan, Syakwala University, State Islamic University Arairi, Lampung University, and Diplo. So I think that's all. Thank you also for His Excellency Mr. Isaac Grace, Charge Affairs of Fiji Embassy in Jakarta, and also Dr. Ari Darmastuti, Head of Department of International Relations, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. Also our moderator today, Dr. Ayi Ahadiat MBA. So that's all. Thank you very much. Good afternoon and enjoy your day. Thank you. So also kind reminder, you can follow our official Instagram account. Okay, I'm gonna type it in our chat room for update the information of our agendas with various activities. And see you next meeting.
Thanks for your inquiry. Gimana hostnya pergi?